Sweet, I'm so tired of you. Every dog must have his day. Sweet, I'm so tired of you. Sweet, I'm so tired of you treat me this way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reach Out podcast. This is your host, Juan Pablo Orques, and thank you again for joining, for taking the time to work in your professional development journey. After all, we just want to help you guys. That is the plain and simple truth. And as always, make sure to repost this episode and share it with someone you may think would benefit from this. Follow us on social media, Instagram at Reach Out Podcast, TikTok at The Reach Out Podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you want me to bring out someone, or if you just want to connect, feel free to do it. Now listen, I'm really excited about this episode. Our guest here is a prime example for what we stand for here at the Reach Out Podcast. So I'm very happy to introduce Eduardo Arzate. Eduardo, thank you for being here, and how's it going?
No, Juan Pablo, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about having this conversation too, and excited to see if I can share any learning lessons. Right now, I guess for those listening, Juan Pablo and I just spoke for like 15 minutes in Spanish, so I have to figure out how to speak in English again.
Yeah.
But excited to be here.
Oh yeah, no, believe me, I would love to have this conversation in Spanish, and someday it will happen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. And Eduardo, can you share a bit about your background,
Yeah.
Where you grew up, and what you're focusing on right now within your work?
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So lived there for about 10 years of my life. My parents immigrated from Mexico after my older brother passed away. Like one of my mom's siblings was like, start the visa process. I can sponsor you. Move to the U.S. Fortunately, in time to have me. And so I was born in Los Angeles, and then moved here to Texas when my dad found an opportunity here to work. When I was around 10, 11. So I kind of like the middle school, high school years, grew up here. Then I went to school at the University of Houston. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Studied management information systems. And the reason I studied it was because I saw this site that said students from Bauer, particularly in MIS, make the most amount of money. That was always my concern. I just always wanted financial stability. Never grew up with it, so I really that's what I was going for. I had 2 internships in my time there. I had a full-time offer by my senior year, so like senioritis like squared, because when you have an offer lined up and I had just to pass my classes, that's exactly what I did, which came back to bite me because I started applying to grad school this year. And realized how important GPA was, and fortunately got into my top school. So I'll be starting that in spring. Excited about that. Started my career as a software engineer at ConocoPhillips. Then became a cloud DevOps engineer working with Azure and AWS. I wanted to do product management because I felt like I wasn't speaking a lot. I would have a 10-minute stand-up every day as a developer, and I wouldn't talk to anybody all day. So felt like I wanted to get into product and leverage what I learned in tech to drive strategy for products in the tech space, and had a handful of offers and decided to go with Capital One. Been there for 2 years, and right now I manage the largest testing product at Capital One, and I'm also the chief of staff for Hispanics in Tech, which is I don't think I can say how many members we have, but it's in the thousands.
Nice.
And so it's a great space to be, I'm super excited to be here.
Man, when I say you're a prime example to what we stand for here in the Reach Out Podcast, it's not only the values, but also the results from what I want to see in the students that take the time to listen to this project. And, Eduardo and I, we met at the Hola event, a student development event hosted by Microsoft a couple weeks ago. He did a workshop for us, and as soon as you got into the room, he started talking, kind of debating with this student about food, which food was better, food in Houston or food in New York.
That's right.
And I was just like, what a way to grab people's attention. I was immediately hooked, and I, like, for a couple minutes after, like, is it better? Like, because they're definitely like Mediterranean food in New York against Houston, and I kept thinking about it. And but I wanna kind of like pick your brain right now and not talk about food, but talk about music.
Okay.
I want to know like what type of music you're into and why.
That's a great question. I love talking about music. I also love arguing with people, so I'm glad you remembered that. That's just one of my favorite. That's like a love language for me. So, because it brings out the part of people that I want to see, which is passion, right? And so I'm glad you remember that. I think that was a really fun workshop. And when it comes to music, I grew up on a lot of Kanye. The first album I ever bought was Graduation.
Nice.
Back in the day with CDs, which I think they're making a comeback. I think I see more people selling CDs now when they release albums. But Graduation was my first album that I fully listened to, that I was in love with, and kind of just been following him since. I guess the dilemma now is separating the art from the artist. You know, he's really going through it. So got to figure out how to navigate that situation. But love Kanye's music. Listen to a lot of Frank Ocean.
Nice.
Big fan of Frank Ocean. And Tyler, the Creator, just dropped a new album this week. So haven't gotten around to listening to all of it.
You haven't?
No, I haven't. It's just been so busy. Yeah. So right now we're dealing with year-end calibrations. So just writing a ton of feedbacks and, doing self-evaluations and stuff like that. So haven't had time. And I love to listen to music with a clear mind. And so when I get there, I will listen to the whole album. But big Frank Ocean fan, big Tyler, the Creator fan. And then I guess from the Spanish side, because I've been listening to Spanish music, what I've been listening to a lot now is like the music that my mom would clean with. Like when Saturday morning when she would wake us up with loud music, it would be like Alejandro Fernandez, a lot of Juanes, like, just stuff like my mom would listen to when I was growing up. That's kind of where I'm vibing. Also like sad Spanish music. I don't know what's going on psychologically in my head to where I'm just really vibing with the sad Spanish music. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah.
I love that. Honestly, I did not expect. I was ready to argue, but like as you were answering, I was like, we have literally the same music taste.
Yeah, you have good music taste, is what you're telling me. What's your top three?
I mean, I love the new Tyler record.
Yeah. So you listen to all the Chromocopia.
Oh, the whole thing, and I'm obsessed with it.
Okay, tell me where you rate it with Tyler albums.
Oh man, I could talk about this forever. Like,
we don't have to talk about soft skills. We could just talk about Tyler.
I'll tell you this, because I've seen that in the past, like Tyler, the Creator albums are not like a first listen cup of tea.
That's true.
But this one is just something else. Like, I'll give you my top 3 songs is Darling I.
Okay.
Sticky.
Okay, yeah.
And Like Him. Like Him is like on his own little pocket, just because it tells his story. I'm gonna tell it to you, just like a brief, because I still want you to listen to it. But like, Tyler didn't grow up with his father,
correct? Yeah.
So it's just about that.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I've never seen him like address that in a song.
Yeah.
And it's one of those songs I actually like listened to it yesterday during morning, like around 6-7 a.m.
7 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not in the right state of mind at 7 a.m., but I really respect that. So, what are you doing when you listen to the album? Are you just sitting? Are you walking?
So I was making my bed. I was like cleaning some stuff, and I was making my bed, and I heard him. I heard like the first like hook.
Okay.
And it says, "Mom, I'm chasing a ghost," and because she says he looks like him.
Oh.
And I was like, I had to stop, and I was like, oh my God, like this is so emotional.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, well, this is how I listen to music. I feel like it's similar to how you listen to music when you say like you vibe with sad Spanish songs.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I feel very deeply, and music is such a interesting way in which you can employ that, through just a sound, and you just feel emotions. I feel like that's kind of like magic.
Yeah.
But I feel like we didn't argue. I feel like it's total opposite,
there's no reason to argue. You have great music taste.
You too.
And you know what? Something that you said, kind of when you're doing the mundane, it's kind of when you can kind of just focus on the music itself.
Yes.
I feel the same way. I have to be doing something when I'm listening to music. And that's why I asked, like, what were you doing when you were listening to the album? Because for me, a lot of the times it's going on a walk and listening. because otherwise I'm not able to absorb it. That's really cool. Yeah, great music taste.
Absolutely.
What about on the Spanish side? Who do you listen to for Spanish?
I mean, I don't know if you saw, but there's this duo of Argentinian guys.
The ones that did the Tiny Desk?
Yes.
That's exactly who I saw the last week. Yeah,
God.
yeah. They're good, man.
Catriel
Yes.
and Paco Amoroso is
Yeah.
just, again, own little pocket, own little bracket, because their music is just so different.
Yeah,
but
it
it's
is.
just like, it hits you on the spot that I was just like, as soon as I saw it, I like sent it to all my friends. And if you haven't listened to it, like, you should definitely hear it, because it's way different from everything that you're hearing right now, but it's so good, right?
Yeah, agreed. I would implore people to listen to the Tiny Desk first, because I think that
Yes.
really opened my eyes to that type of music.
Oh, yeah.
Because the stuff on Spotify is different. When I
Oh,
listened to
yeah.
their, it was like, oh, I was expecting to listen to what they were doing on Tiny Desk, but
Mhm.
it was a shift. It wasn't exactly what they did.
Much more like electronic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but still enjoyable and
Oh,
something
yeah.
I'm not used to.
Definitely. And, you know, like, after that, I've been, like, seeing more Tiny Desks. Like,
Yeah.
I just put them to, like, maybe to study. And, yeah, no. I feel like those, like, what I'm really into right now.
Yeah.
Just kind of, like, hyping on the, like, jumping on the hype train, but
No,
still.
if it's good music, it's completely merited. That's how I got into sad Mexican music or Hispanic music, because I listened to Carla Morrison's Tiny
my
Desk.
God.
Oh man, I was in my feels, bro. And the thing is, like,
No.
life is good right now, so I had to
Yeah.
like make up things in my head to be sad about. And so, but like when you resonate with music so much, it's just. I don't know what it is, and maybe we can talk about this later, but I would love to better understand how emotions differ when you hear things in different languages. I feel like when I hear things in Spanish, it hits a part of my heart that's, I don't know, I think more emotionally tied. I think I'm more emotional in Spanish than I am in English.
Oh, my God, 100%.
You know?
I totally get what you're saying.
And so I think that's an interesting thing to kind of think about and potentially discuss. But yeah, I'm sorry for derailing your conversation.
Oh, man, I love where this is going.
Yeah.
But, you know, I feel like it's a great way to start on our main topic, which is how to master your soft skills.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, we met at the Ola event, and I believe you're one of those persons, one of those like people that I want to listen to, and with that, I kind of assume that you guys also want to listen to you, just because of the type of content that I put out. So, Eduardo, what motivated you to volunteer that day? Like, where does that passion to help students come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of my mentees, Victoria, I don't know if you've met her. She was at the event, extremely talented, very bright, and she had asked me if I wanted to come do a workshop or give a presentation, and I said, of course. I did not hesitate, especially because it was her asking, but also because I just love talking.
Right.
And so the opportunity to talk presented itself, and I was like, I'm there. It's also with my dream company. Like, I've always wanted to work at Microsoft. I'm sorry for anybody at Capital One listening, but I've always really wanted to work at Microsoft. And I think it stems from growing up. I always just wanted to make my parents happy. And the only person that they knew was Bill Gates. And so, like, I was like, that's the only success. They would always be like, oh, one day you're going to be Bill Gates. And so I think that's why I'm kind of yearning for an opportunity at Microsoft. I talked to a couple people there. Let's see if we can manifest that. We'll see. But the reason I went was because for her, the opportunity to talk, and it's also Microsoft.
Yeah.
But also because I used to go to those, right? And there were like opportunities for me to network when I was there. I added everyone on LinkedIn afterwards, because I always remember going to those events and adding people on LinkedIn, and none of them would add me. And I was just like, this is the worst. I thought we had something when we talked, and we had small talk at the event. I just keep on paying it forward, and you know, you're gonna have that opportunity too, and you're kind of already doing that, right? I think media is a way to reach the masses, and the way that you're doing it is really impressive, and I just wanted to give you your flowers, because
Thank you.
No, seriously, the people that you're talking to are people that are extremely successful or bound to be, you know, huge leaders in their fields, and you know, it's a way of how do we reach more people, how do we continue to help the community, which honestly I think trying to elevate Hispanics in tech is something that I'm very passionate about, and I'll continue to do. So I saw that opportunity at the Microsoft event, and I got to meet great people just like yourself. Yeah,
Absolutely. I feel like that was I spoke with Gustavo.
Yeah.
after, and I helped on the phone with him, and I was like, Gustavo, I almost felt selfish, like leaving the event, just because I got so many good things. I met so many cool people, and he was like, don't ever feel selfish, because that was like the full intent of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what we're there for. I didn't listen to the other. I think there was someone from NASA there.
Yeah.
And then I forgot what the other one was. I think there was someone else.
It was them.
Oh, it was Gustavo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They did the co-pilot thing. Yeah, that's right. Which one was the best one?
Yours.
Oh, no, you're
Yours.
just saying that because I'm here.
No.
If the NASA guy was here, you'd be like, dude, yours is the best, man.
No, actually, Diego's going to come, and he's going to be in the Reach Out podcast in a few
Diego
weeks.
is the NASA guy?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry, Diego, for slandering you. I don't even know you.
No, like, there's so many good things that I got out of that event, and one of them, as you mentioned, is Victoria.
Yeah.
Victoria, I met Victoria when she was president of Student Org that I had just joined.
Which one was she president of?
Bauer Ambassadors.
She was president of that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm a bad mentor. I didn't. How many? Okay, talk me through Bauer Ambassadors.
Bauer Ambassadors is not even a student org; it's a student program.
Okay.
And
oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's kind of like very selective because they take in the duty to have like 3 focuses: professional, like student development for the members.
Yeah.
Also talking with potential like rich alumni that want to donate money to Bauer.
Yeah, great connection.
And also high schoolers that want to join Bauer.
Yeah.
So it's like that very sweet spot where you have the prospects, the current, and the rich alumni.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And when I joined Victoria, she did my interview, if I'm not mistaken. And
she interviewed you.
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
And I almost didn't get it. Because like I totally blanked on the fact that it was business professional.
Okay.
And I pulled up with like baggy jeans, a green crew neck, and my green hat.
Yeah.
And
you have the hair for a hat. You have gray hair for a hat.
Thank you. And I was like, oh, I totally got this in the bag. And then my friend Eddie, he was like working with her in the org. He was like, you almost didn't get it because of your outfit. And I was like, my outfit was fire. What do you mean? And he was like, oh, you're not in a suit. And I was like, thankfully, I did make it. And as soon as I saw Victoria at the Ion that day, I give her a big hug. I'm so happy to see her now like thrive on what awesome. Is her like first few years of her career. Because good things do take time. Yeah. And if you're listening to this, Victoria, big hug to you from your mentor and from your friend. But as obviously you're her mentor, and I'm a huge believer in the power of mentorship.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your perspective. How has mentorship impacted your career, Eduardo, and more importantly, your personal growth? Yeah.
It's twofold, right? Because I've been a mentor and a mentee, and I think there's learnings from both that I can take away. I'm really fortunate to have phenomenal mentees, and I think I talked about this at the presentation, but if you're going to be a mentor, the reason you should do it is because you want your mentees to be more successful than you. And the reason that is because as a mentor, you have made several mistakes in your career, and I've made more than I could count. And I want to make sure that they don't go through those, right? And so, and I also want, like, my goal is for all of them to one day be my boss. And if the second that they surpass me and, they reach a level to where they can hire me, I know I've made it. It's a really, you have to drop the ego at the door when you're a mentor, because you want nothing but the best for your mentees. Actually, you should surround yourself by people, not just like in a mentorship capacity, but like your friends, family. Like, surround yourself by people that want you to be your best self, to be successful, that elevate you as much as they possibly can. As a mentee, so I have really like 2 mentors, and one of them is vicarious, because sometimes you have mentors that you kind of just look up to and try to follow, and maybe it's not a mentorship in the sense that we have routine one-on-ones or anything like that. The other one's a little bit more intentional. So you're doing finance, right? Supply chain. Do you take project management as an MIS or as a elective? Because I think it's one of the advanced electives at U of H.
I don't think I took that one.
No? Well, the project management professor, his name is Philip Campbell.
Okay.
And when I met him, he told us that he is full-time at Chevron. And I had an offer at ConocoPhillips. And so So oil and gas is predominantly like white, right?
Right.
And so I was worried. I was like, how am I going to fit? And even in my hiring class, I think there was like 25, 26 of us, and there was 2 Hispanics.
Wow.
And the other Hispanic, I just went to his wedding last weekend, and I had a really great time. But I talked to Philip about it. I was like, how do you navigate that, right? Especially in Houston, where it's such a huge Hispanic community. How am I going to do in the workforce? How do I navigate that? So yes, stemming from that question, I was able to really learn a lot from him. And I bother him all the time. He was one of the people that wrote my rec letters for grad school. He's someone that I reach out to when I have questions. He's currently at LinkedIn now. He's the chief of staff over there. He's a killer. And so I implement the same methodologies that he does, where it's like, if you need something, always reach out to me. Do not, I will always respond. It might be delayed, but I will respond. Something that I'm trying to do better than him is to check in on my mentees. Because while I do think there's a lot of value in always being there for your mentors or for your mentees, there's also a lot of value in checking in. Right. And so I'm trying. So I think there's always areas for improvement and how to learn. So I'm going to do that. My other mentor, her name is Jennifer Lopez, not that one, not the singer. She was a VP at Capital One.
Gotcha.
She was the accountable executive for Hispanics in Tech, where I was the chief of staff. She brought me in, actually. She was the one that asked me to come be chief of staff. And she was just incredible, just an absolute. So she was VP at 31, 32.
It was insane.
Young 30s. And I was just like, I want to be like you.
Yeah. And
when I got the opportunity to work with her, I came in with a lot of ego. I was like, there's not a lot different for me and you. There's not. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same business stuff. But she humbled me so quickly because we would work on strategy decks, and the time it would take me to do one slide, she would knock out the entire presentation.
Right.
And I was like, oh, there's a big difference. So I guess the mentorship that I take away from her is kind of just trying to mimic what she does, and a lot of that is just working really hard. She's a really hard worker, and she's like a phenomenal storyteller. I think if we get to talk on it today, I think storytelling is one of the most valuable soft skills that you could possibly have. Alongside, listening. Right. I think the ability to tell a story, to build, a storyline and explain something in basic terms to where people understand it, that's going to be very valuable in your career and anybody's career. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from Jen and Phil, and I hope my mentors or mentees have learned a lot from me. Yeah,
I love that, and I think that you've gotten such a full benefit from your mentorships, both being a mentee and a mentor. I have a few mentors, and I absolutely love learning how to navigate those relationships. Yeah. First of all, and also obviously the knowledge that comes from them. Right. It's insane. Actually, one of them kind of inspires me to keep doing this. Yeah. Like this, and she works at Google, Alexandra. I interviewed
That's your dream
her.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Google, and I remember I texted 50, 60 people on LinkedIn so I can interview someone from Google for my podcast, and she was the only one that said yes. And as soon as I hit record, we started talking. I was like, this is who I want to be when I'm your age. And she posts every single day. She tries to help students. She tries to help on professional development topics.
That's awesome.
And she's also killing it in Google. And I actually went to visit her on New York this summer, and it was just lovely to see relationships come from something that seemed so minuscule at the moment. Yeah. And I'm just eager for the day that I can have my own mentees and just help them as much as I can. Yeah. Yeah. But I want to touch on something that you mentioned, storytelling, which is kind of similar to something that I was going to ask you. Yeah. That it's kind of a follow up from our last talk, at the event. Over time, you really start to see how crucial it is to communicate and storytell effectively. Being able to express your ideas clearly in a way that's easy for others to understand becomes even more important as you move up in your career. Right. Yeah, especially when you're talking someone really important, high stakes, Yeah. I believe you're a great example of someone who's mastered this skill. And I'm going to ask you the question that I asked you the other day. Is the ability to storytell directly proportional to the ability to listen correctly?
Again, phenomenal question. Like I told you when I heard it, and for those of you listening, Juan Pablo is a phenomenal listener already. He gets no value from my conversation, and I think to ask good questions, you have to be a good listener, and so that's why I feel like you're a phenomenal listener. So to answer your question, do you have to be a good listener to be a good storyteller?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes. I think in order to get across, whatever point you're trying to make, you also have to understand what the person would be interested in, right? Like a lot of it is appealing to the people that you're talking to.
Right.
And in order to do that, you have to be a good listener and understand what do they want to hear while still, getting my point across of what I want to talk about, right? And so, yes, I do think you have to be a good listener to be a good storyteller, because a lot of the times if you're not a good listener, you're probably going to talk about pointless things that won't really seem as of value to the listener, right? A lot of the time you have to appeal to the person that you're talking to. In order to do that, you have to be a good listener. You have to be attentive, watch facial expressions. How do they react to certain subjects or certain words, certain themes? I think in short, yes, you have to be a good listener to be a good storyteller. The long answer, I kind of just unfolded, right? And so, but yeah, what do you think?
I believe that listening is such a skill that you learn how to master whenever you're placed in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
I had an interview earlier today, and
for a company or
no, I was interviewing someone just
okay.
like I'm doing with you. Actually, Jessica for Microsoft as well.
Cool. Nice.
And I remember I was just it's been quite a few months since I've interviewed someone in my podcast, I had a guest, and I was just looking at the camera, looking at the controller, looking at the microphone, looking at the script, looking at her.
Yeah.
And I was I'm missing maybe half of what she's saying. I'm hearing her,
yeah,
but I'm not really listening to her.
That happens.
And I had to really lock in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to take care of this. So whenever you're placed in those situations, whenever you don't have those responsibilities and you're just having a one-on-one normal conversation, you start to realize how better you are at focusing on what the other person is saying. And I believe that thankfully I've got this to train myself all the time because I found out that when I'm just listening to someone, and I feel this really good advice is pretend everyone that you talk to knows 10 more things that you don't know. That way you're always having this student mentality where you're always curious about what they're saying. And not only that, but I'm going to highlight something you said the other day, which is that feeling heard is the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, when you said that, I said, why would you like feeling hurt?
My enunciation was good. Yeah, that's funny. I think it's a sensation that it's really hard to replicate of talking to someone and just feeling heard. And I think I try to live by the quote that I heard where it's you never really learn anything by talking, right? And so if you're doing more listening, you're learning a lot more. And it's something you have to be very intentional about. I don't think there is such a thing as multitasking with listening. I think it's something you have to fully devote yourself to. And I think it does a lot for your brain too. If you're intentional with conversations and you try to listen and have takeaways, it also improves your recall, right? Which is really valuable. But no, yeah, I resonate with that because at work I'm getting pings all throughout the day while I'm in meetings. I'll be very honest with you. I don't think I'm fully listening most of the time, and it's really hard. Yeah. And so, yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make is there is no such thing as multitasking and listening.
Yeah. Eduardo, I'm not smart. I'm just a really good listener.
Yeah.
Tell us what that phrase means to you.
Yeah.
How has the art of listening shaped your overall career?
Yeah. So I'm glad you remember that. That one I live by. I'm not smart. I'm just a good listener. I also live by. I'm not. So you either work hard or you work smart, and unfortunately, I have to work really hard. And that's kind of that's where I'm at in my career in my life. I'm surrounded by people that are a lot smarter than me, which I recommend for anybody out there and for yourself. Surround yourself by people that are smarter than you, and you will grow exponentially. Fortunately for me, the smartest person I know is my wife. She's a genius, so like I keep her close and try to catch up to her. But no, that's very true. I think I don't have the academic background that a lot of my peers do. And I think that I've had a sense of insecurity about it, and maybe that's part of the reason why I'm going to grad school and why I wanted to go to like a nice school. And I think it's a lot to unfold, especially like with my background. I didn't have the best GPA. I think I told you. I think when I got Conoco, I think I had like a 2.6, a 2.7, right? And I remember at one of my job fairs, I went up to Exxon, and Exxon had told me like, where's your GPA on your resume? And I was like, oh, I don't include it. And they're like, do you have a 3.5? And I said, no. And they handed me back my resume. Yeah, which,
No
you know
way.
what? In hindsight, as a poor college student, I really appreciate that because I used a nice resume paper. So I was like, okay, perfect. I can go take this to the next company that might, accept me. But that was the only time in my career where that mattered. I think a lot of my time has been spent on trying to develop stuff that I'm good at, which is talking and listening. Can you be a good talker? Can you be a good listener? And I think people almost see it as an oxymoron, like you can't be a good listener and a good talker. But that's something that I've really been intentional about developing. And, I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of good speakers. And I just try to emulate what they do. And I think one of the things that, I try to tell myself is, I'm already out of school. My GPA doesn't matter. I can, like, the sky's the limit. But it didn't matter when I was in school either. And, like, for those of you listening who are a little bit concerned about, man, I don't have the grades to get a good job, I don't think that's true. I mean, I was getting offers from Goldman Sachs, from Deloitte, from Capital One, Conoco. Like, I was getting offers from these companies with the below 3. And a lot of that is because I would go into interviews. And a lot of the times when you go into interviews, and I've been on both sides of the table, and when I'm interview people and I have candidates who just don't talk, and I'm just like asking them questions, and it's not a conversation, it's an immediate no, regardless. I have peers who had 4.0s and never had an internship because it was really hard to talk to them. And that happens. But, if I can talk to you, if I can have a discussion with you, I think that's very valuable. Because at the end of the day, you're working 40 hours with this individual. You're probably spending more time with your coworkers than you are with your family, with your significant other, for better or worse. And yeah, I think that's just carried me. I've always been a good speaker. I haven't been the best listener, and I've been very intentional about fixing that. And teaching how to be a good listener has taught me a little bit of that as well, right? Because you learn a lot from teaching others. And I still have a lot to grow.
I love that. I feel like the common denominator with all of those is to be intentional about whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, I ironically, I only listen to just 2 podcasts.
Okay, what do you got?
Mindset Mentor by Rob Dial Jr.
Rob Dial Jr. Okay. We'll
I'll
have to
send
talk
it to
about
you.
these. Yes, send it to me.
And the supply chain bus is like kind of like just a way to keep me excited about supply chain. And
Interesting.
But Rob Dial says like everything that you do is a vote for the person that you want to become. And it just goes down to the point. You got to be intentional about everything.
Yeah.
And with, like in your case, listening, because I feel like grabbing people's attention is such a subjective skill. But I'm telling you, once you were done with your workshop and everything like was done, and we stopped talking with the volunteers, and I spoke to you, you immediately reminded me of Natera Branch, the CEO of Houston Exponential.
Okay. Yeah.
Natera and Tasunda Brown. Tasunda, she's the CEO of TIA Bank.
Oh, wow.
She and I say those two because those two did a couple talks at Bauer, and after I left, I just felt electric. That was like the way I described it. And after I left your workshop, I was like, it feels the same.
That's awesome.
It feels the same, and I feel like I think I told you that. It's one of those just less than a handful of talks that like is like this, like it just clicks, and I feel like that skill, you really have it down. And again,
I'm blushing.
It's such a rare thing too, but I agree. You know, the value of having like a discussion, it's gonna take you places, and I feel like I relate to some of the stuff that you mentioned. Like, I'm gonna be honest, when I was in high school, I was really good at getting away with things because I befriended a lot of my teachers.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I made sure that my teachers really, really liked me.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I once skipped class and I made my teacher cry. My teacher was crying. She like, this is not the you that I know.
Oh my God.
And they really, really liked me.
Yeah.
And
why'd you skip class?
I went to the music room to like just do music. And
I like that.
And and when I came to U of H, I was like, well, there's like 40,000 more students here, and that's not gonna cut it. And I've definitely have struggles academically, and I've learned to rely much more on my people skills.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing this a lot, and at some points I feel like it's kind of like a toxic relationship that I have with this podcast, because there's days that I was like, oh, I have to study too.
Yeah, you have a lot on your plate.
Like, I have to study too. Like, I have class. Because I'm thinking about this all the time, and I don't really know what I was going with this, but
I think I know exactly where you're going with it, and it's kind of like, are you able to build the relationships that matter? Because that's kind of what you did, right? You built the relationships that matter. Maybe you were going around skipping class, but at the end of the day, you had built a relationship, a repertoire with like those teachers, to the point where they probably didn't do anything, right? You didn't get in trouble, I'm guessing. Yeah, there you go. So like that's really how life works. It's about building those relationships, and I try to do that as much as I can in my personal and professional life, because that's really what carries you. And that's funny you bring up the teacher thing. So when I was at Bauer, I was doing Java, and like I said, I'm not smart. I'm just a good listener. And I got a C in that class, but I would go to office hours every week, which just goes to show, like, every week I was going to office hours and I got a C. And the Professor Collier, she reached out to me and said, hey, ConocoPhillips is opening up this thing called SLF, like Student Leadership Forum, where you go to Oklahoma and you spend 3 days there and you do a presentation, you network. And she said, you have a small chance of getting an offer through it. And, again, I was able to, make connections, make relationships. I'm going to their weddings still. I'm really close friends with the people that I met there. And so, sometimes it just takes someone give you an opportunity, similar to, the relationship you built with your teachers. You're going to have to do that with your colleagues and your boss. The boss thing is really important, because that usually dictates how much you climb, or potentially if you get fired, because that's really 90% of the people that dictate your success in professional life.
It's so interesting. Like, I'm always still very new to it. I've had a few internships, but it's I feel like we can talk about this more later. Just more.
It's hard because it's like you don't want to be a suck up, right? And you don't want to be someone like a teacher's pet, but you also don't want to get on their bad side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Eduardo, something that I believe we have all experienced through our careers, whether it's in college or in the workforce, is the difference between the skills that are teachable and the skills that are not. More specifically, I want to talk about curiosity. How have you employed and crafted the skill of curiosity in order to succeed in your career, Eduardo?
That's a great soft skill to have, and if you consider it a soft skill, I don't know. I think curiosity in and of itself is very valuable, because a lot of what curiosity leads to is questions, right? And so a lot of your success in your career is going to be defined by the questions that you ask. And whether it's tough questions like, am I going to get promoted? Or whether it's strategic questions in a leadership meeting that, makes people pensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can make like a, executive VP think about your question and like, oh, that's a good question, that really sticks out. So curiosity is extremely valuable, and I don't know how much of it is natural and how much of it is forced. But I think a lot of the times I go into, I think the way that you characterize yourself as someone charming and charismatic is by asking questions, because you are interested in the other person. And like I said in the conversation or in the presentation, when you go out to eat with someone that just talks, it's awful. You go home feeling like, trash.
Right.
But that person goes home feeling like, wow, I feel so heard. I feel awesome, right? It's a two-way street. Sometimes you try to listen, sometimes you try to hear, and that way you get, best of both worlds. But how to stay curious is kind of just, asking like why a lot of the time. A lot of the times I ask myself like why. Like when we started talking, we talked about like, why do you do stuff like the Microsoft thing, or like understanding the purpose behind things is really valuable. And I try to implement that in every facet of my life. As a product manager, a lot of what product management is the how and the why, or rather the what and the why. Like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And then my engineering peers figure out the how, right? And so you have to maintain your curiosity somehow, whether it's fake or whether it's genuine. Right. And sometimes you fake it till you make it, and you just ask questions so that way you look curious. Yeah. Thankfully, naturally, I'm a curious person. I don't know if it's because I love like gossip and I love just talking to people and knowing more about them. But yeah, I would consider, I would recommend if it doesn't come naturally to you, fake it.
Oh yeah, that's such a like a good advice, honestly. And I feel like it's one of those things that goes over people's heads until you're doing it. Yeah. And I'm definitely, sometimes I'm doing it. Yeah. And it's just, you cannot help but feel uncomfortable or like guilty for it. Yeah. But yet again, I feel like that's just, you're supposed to be there. Like, you're there for a reason. Yeah. And, but with that said, we're coming in the end of this interview. Yeah. And like normally I would go for the last question, which is my favorite question. Okay. But when I was writing the script, I was like, I want to ask, because I was doing my research and I was writing the questions. And I was like, I want to ask him like the opposite of what my favorite question is. Okay, hit me with it. So usually I would say what makes you happy, but at first I want to ask you what scares you. What scares me? That's a very existentialist question. I love it. What scares me? I don't know. A lot of things scare me, like a lot. And I kind of just try to compartmentalize it as much as I can and move on. Honestly, everything scares me. And I put on this facade of confidence because a lot of it is just like, again, going back to the fake it till you make it. But, I think things that scare me right now, they're not so much professional so much as like life. I just got married last year, and now it's like, kids, and it's a house, and it's thinking about that. It's those next steps in life. And then if you wait too long for kids, you can't have them. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's a timetable, a timeline rather. And it's hard. It's hard to think about those things. It's scary. I think about my parents. They're getting older. That's something to think about, right? I have a limited amount of time with them. I think something that I heard the other day that I think you would appreciate is you have 100 problems until you have one health problem. Then you only have one health problem, right? Yeah. And that's really what I think about, because as you get older, you become more susceptible to things like cancer, to diseases as a whole, like illness, and I think about that a lot. And so, what am I scared of? Everything. I'm always scared, and I put on, it's almost bravado, but you have to be a little bit delusional. And I think I really wanted to get into this. I think everybody should be a little delusional, because otherwise you cannot get through like life. Like it's just really hard to do so, unless you're really good at compartmentalizing. But yeah, that's what, everything scares me, and I try to reason with it and move on.
But I think also like fear of failure also drives a lot of my success, right?
Nice.
So I think fear is used in positive terms. It just depends on how you look at it.
Sweet, I'm so tired of you. Every dog must have his day. Sweet, I'm so